Good morning, everyone. It's 11 a.m. It's class time. Hope you guys had a good weekend. I was looking at the schedule and I've got it up in another tab. Let's see, is that the one? Yep, there it is. Today is April 7th. We've got lecture today, Wednesday. Next Monday, the 14th, then the 16th. Then on the 21st, we are going to have a review for our exam. Then our exam is on the 23rd. Then the 28th, we got a review for our final. And our final is April 30th. So we effectively have 2 weeks worth of new content. And that's it for the semester. Um, what to expect? One thing is, I did not post activities or quizzes for you last week. So that is if you guys have ever played the game Monopoly, that's a bank error in your favor. So you'll see those grades awarded later today, probably. And then I got a couple more activities that I'm going to post for this week, or a pair of activities, some quizzes as well, and then activities for next week and some quizzes for next week. But that's pretty much it. We are on the I guess I don't know the decline. We're wrapping things up. We're nearing the end of the semester. As a long story short, um, we got a couple more topics to go over, and that will be kind of it. Um, ow. I'm stalling for just a little bit because usually we have about close to 20, 25 people in class. And right now there's only 10. So, um, but I'm gonna go. Yeah. I took my kids to see the Minecraft movie this weekend. Um, and they liked it. I don't know if anyone plays Minecraft. I don't know, or played Minecraft. I never did. But they play it. But my streak as a parent taking my kids to movies remains alive. I fell asleep again. It was only for like 10 minutes. So every movie that I've taken my kids to, I have fallen asleep during it for at least 5 minutes or so. But with that said, vitamin C. That's what we're talking about today. Now, if you think about where we have been, we've talked about proteins, we've talked about signaling, we've talked about cancer, chemotherapies. Um, we're now talking about vitamin C, which might seem like a little bit of a dovetail or a curve, but I'll show you in just a little bit why we're talking about that. Because it does kind of connect to or does relate to overall human health and relationship to cancer there. Now, the functions of vitamin C are these. It's an antioxidant. It's involved in collagen synthesis, which collagen is a connective protein. It's involved in iron absorption, immune system support, and it is also involved in neurotransmitter synthesis. Now, the history for vitamin C, I'm sure you guys are looking at this and you're like, did you already let us see the PDF? It's not working for me. You know what? I haven't posted the PDF and I haven't posted the PowerPoint. Um, but did that fix it? Can you see the screen now? Or is that what you were talking about? I got a private message that said, did you already let us see the PDF? It's not working for me. Is this, I haven't posted it on our Canvas page and I'm just kind of confirming that I stopped my share because sometimes that seems to be an issue. Some people can't see the shared screen. So I restarted that. Um, but yeah, so this fellow on the left-hand side of the screen, Dr. Albert. How did I mess up Albert when his last name has, I think that's an umlaut over the O? I don't speak any other languages. I messed up the name Albert Zent Georgi, I think. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that. This is the gentleman who was awarded the Nobel Prize for kind of the discovery of or the identification of vitamin C as a critical nutrient. Now, there had been for decades research on the topic, but this is the guy who finally like summed it up and was like, ah, it's this compound. It's this compound, also known as ascorbic acid. Now, up until then, just for a little bit of a background context, this guy in 1869, another fellow by the name of William Stark, he was a physician in Great Britain, and he began experiments on diet and nutrition on himself as the experimental subject. After consuming only bread and water for 31 days. So this is like dedication to his craft. He's like, I've got this theory. And you know who's going to be the person who I use to test this theory? Oh, no, nope, 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 nope. Me. That is like putting your money where your mouth is. Um, he added other foods to his diet one by one, including olive oil, figs, goose meat, naturally goose meat, and milk. And I'm kind of saying goose meat in jest because I have never knowingly had goose meat. I'm guessing it's probably a part of a hot dog or something in a McDonald's burger at some point. But in 2 months, Stark recorded that his gums were red and swollen. He was easily able to bleed, which that phrasing, bleeding easily to the touch, sounds like, oh, wow, that's a really, really, excuse my language, but that's a really crappy superpower. 7 months later, he died. My goodness. Possibly from scurvy and likely the cumulative effects from, or sorry, from the cumulative effects of malnutrition. Okay, so if anyone, yes, Taylor, you said it. That is dedication. That's a real scientist. This is a moment where I think to myself, Joel, no, no, no. Have you done research? Yeah, kind of, but nothing compared to this. Um, yeah, but also I think this is a really good example for why you need like, you don't do research alone. You talk to people. I think that you need, the PDF is not on Canvas yet. So there's nothing to download at this point in time. I will post that later today. I apologize. Um, so this is an instance where it's like, actually, you know what? I think I can, it's like this guy's commitment was pretty incomparable. Um, save as. You know what? I can do this real quick. I apologize. I'll get this PDF going. Now, that scurvy is ultimately the I guess the affliction or the issue that most people are most familiar with when it comes to vitamin C deficiency. Um, that's the one that pirates would get whenever they would sail across the or be at sea for a very long period of time because they'd get bread, they'd get fish, they'd get lots of different nutrients, but they wouldn't really have any vitamin C. They wouldn't get any citrus. Because if they did have access to citrus before leaving, it would spoil pretty quickly. Okay. Now, sorry, just 1 second. So, in addition to that, it's pretty common knowledge, or it's mostly common knowledge what are very good resources or very very good sources of vitamin C. And I'm trying to just a second. Sorry, my program crashed out there. Oh, okay, there we go. It's full screen. Now I just need to share it. Okay, so good resources or good sources of vitamin C are, your citrus fruits like grapefruit, oranges, kiwi, um, tons of different options that people are very familiar with. Now, with that in mind, this is just kind of like, oh yeah, eat your fruits and vegetables. They're good for you. They have this essential nutrient that if you neglect it or do not eat it at all, it's entirely possible that you will die from this, as was the case of Dr. William Stark. Um, okay. Now, in addition to that, we have some kind of contemporary examples. Well, here's a paper. Here's the title of a paper, and just I apologize. My fumbling there for a moment was because I was posting the PDF. So the PDF of this file is now accessible on our Canvas page. So if you'd like to go ahead and download that, you are welcome to. Um, I bring this paper up. Paper is titled Integrative Oncology for High-Grade Glioma. Okay, so a glioma is a type of cancer. A case report on the combined effects of oncothermia and complementary therapy. Now, this anytime that you read a scientific article or you find a scientific article, which I've got a couple of different screenshots from, the first thing that's going to be shown is what's known as the abstract. And the abstract more or less is a summary. And I'll say it's a summary of findings. And this goes on and it presents like, hey, here's what's going on. Here's the person or here's the subject that was studied. High-grade gliomas are aggressive brain tumors with poor prognosis despite conventional treatments such as surgery, so removing it, radiation to kill areas, and chemotherapy. Integrative oncology, combining conventional and complementary therapies, may offer additional benefits in managing these complex cases. Okay, so in this, we present a 68-year-old male farmer diagnosed with a high-grade glioma in the left medial temporal lobe. Okay, so he's got this aggressive brain tumor, and what was done in this study was they okay, he had issues of headache, disturbed sleep, anxiety, and fevers and seizures. He refused conventional radiation therapy due to concerns about side effects and opted for integrative medicine protocol. Okay, so an integrative medicine protocol. So he effectively was like, I don't want to try surgery. I don't want to try chemotherapy. I don't want to try radiation. I'm declining all of those. And he opted for an alternative approach, which included an oncothermia. Can anyone guess or add to the chat? What do you think that means? Oncothermia. So onco relates to cancer. What do you think that thermia means? Heat. Yeah. Oncothermia would be either, um, I would think about it as probably an extreme temperature, maybe like cold baths or maybe sitting in a sauna or something, some sort of treatment like that, as well as high dose vitamin C. Okay, I take a vitamin C supplement every day. And the vitamin C supplement that I think most people take, could anyone add to the chat approximately the dosage of what one capsule is, or what one vitamin C pill, chewable pill, or what that is approximately? And if you're going to get up from your chair, don't worry about it. It's about 1,000 milligrams. Okay, so this high dose vitamin C, this is a big deal because high dose vitamin C, generally this is typical. People will take 1,000 milligrams to 2,500 milligrams per day. That's kind of the average range. So then a high dosage would basically be anything higher than 2,500 milligrams. So let's say hypothetically that's 4,000 milligrams per day. Now, one of the things about vitamin C is that if you take too much of it, it can cause you to have some pretty unpleasant gastrointestinal issues. So it can lead to yeah, you can have loose stool or diarrhea or something like that. Um, In addition to that, this person took on hydrogen inhalation, ozone therapy, magnet therapy, fasting, acupuncture, pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, yoga, hydrotherapy, biologicals, and dietary modifications. This patient underwent 12 sessions of oncothermia over 24 days. Combined with other integrative therapies, MRI scans before and after treatment showed a reduction in tumor size from, and here's our dimensions. This is since a tumor is going to kind of have like a spherical or an oblong shape, 3.6 by 2.9 by 2.5 to 3.4 times 2 by 2.7 by 2.5, corresponding to a 12% decrease in volume. So I bring this up because this is something, and um, there's a scientist by the name of Linus Pauling. Add to the chat if you've ever heard that name before. Just a Y or an N. Linus Pauling was someone who was awarded a Nobel Prize back in, I think it was the 1940s. I'll say 1930s to 1940s. Very influential person, very intelligent, very brilliant person. He was awarded a Nobel Prize. I cannot remember specifically what he was awarded it for, but he was very influential in chemistry. And in the later portion of his life, I think he died in like 19, I think in the 80s he passed away. So basically from the 70s to the 80s, um, he was kind of inspired by or interested in vitamin C. And he had this kind of theory. He was like, whatever amount of vitamin C that you're taking every day, it's not enough. You got to take more. And he believed in this concept known as mega dosing. And so that would be like taking 4,000 milligrams a day. He would say, if the bottle says to take one capsule, take four. Um, and so he believed that vitamin C had kind of properties that are more powerful than what is typically reported. Um, Now, this presents like a really kind of interesting and complicated situation because um, this study, I'm just using this as an example. Like lots of people will take vitamin C, when they have like a little bit of a cold or something, or seasonal changes. Oh, I'm going to take some vitamin C. I'm going to make sure to drink extra orange juice or something like that because it does support your immune system. Um, but Linus Pauling kind of led this direction of, well, maybe it has an influence on cancer recoveries. And, this right here, I believe everything that's in this abstract. I don't think any of it is untrue. But one of the complicated things about scientific research is reproducibility. Add to the chat, how many people were studied in this paper right here? One. Now, one thing is that makes science challenging is, this person saying, "Oh, this therapy worked for me." Yeah, it seemingly did work for him. Worked for this one person. Does that mean that it's going to work for absolutely everyone? It doesn't. Is vitamin C something that will fend or help as a measure to fend off this sort of aggressive cancer? Not necessarily. Does that mean that we shouldn't study it at all? No. That means that a reproducible result has yet to be discovered. Now, I bring this up because I want to also talk about things that are known, like mechanistically, that vitamin C does absolutely do. So I want to bring this up as like, hey, does vitamin C play a role in general health and cancer recoveries? Well, there are lots of examples like this, but the reproducibility of them remains a little bit variable, in part because, this is a study where someone declined therapies that were introduced by their physicians and suggestions that were made on medical advice. There's probably other stories where someone does something similar and they don't have that same sort of result. And that's something that's really kind of tough. It doesn't really get reported because, well, that person doesn't kind of submit to any sort of study of that result. Now, one thing that is known about vitamin C is that it is involved in radical production. These are known as, or these compounds are radicals or reactive oxygen species. ROS stands for reactive oxygen species. Now, these are made in the mitochondria, but what's important about them is that um, they are used in kind of in cellular communication. Now, here's a complex chain of what's taking place. What I want you guys to know about this is that vitamin C is essential for radical or ROS production. Now, vitamin C is an antioxidant and it acts as an electron donor. It is one thing that's important to know about it. It is soluble in water. It's a water-soluble antioxidant in humans. Here's the structure of it. It is also known as ascorbic acid. Epidemiological studies show that diets high in fruits and vegetables are associated with lower risk of cardiovascular disease, stroke, and cancer, and with increased longevity. So there is kind of that correlation. There's that association that, well, if you consume a lot of this, which has lots of vitamin C, then maybe you're going to be in a position to avoid this. Um, Now, when it comes to what specifically vitamin C does, we need to talk about protein types. There are two major classes of proteins. They are globular proteins and fibrous proteins. Globular proteins are proteins which are folded to more or less a spherical shape. So a globular protein, it kind of looks like that's the one that I always like to get a piece of paper and crumple it up. And I say that's a globular protein. Fibrous proteins, they are much more organized and they make essentially a fiber. So fibrous proteins, what's important about them is that they consist of long fibers or large sheets. These are proteins that are very strong. So fibrous proteins are what we're focusing on when it comes to vitamin C. Fibrous proteins, in addition to being mechanically very strong, they're insoluble in water and salt solutions. They play important structural roles in nature. They tend to only have one type of secondary structure. Does anyone remember? Could anyone add to the chat what were our secondary structures of proteins? I'll give you a hint. I'll give you one of them, an alpha helix. Could anyone add the other one to the chat? I knew it. Good job. Great job. Great job. Great job. Now, some examples of fibrous proteins. Collagen is an example of a fibrous protein. This is the connective tissue of animals, including cartilage, bones, teeth, skin, and blood vessels. So let me ask you this. Add a Y or an N to the chat. Are fibrous proteins important to living? Yeah, yeah. Now, with that in mind, how does this relate to vitamin C? Well, the answer to that is looking at one particular fibrous protein known as collagen. This is the important connective tissue or component of connective tissue that makes up your tendons, your cartilage, your bones, and your teeth. So basically, when you move your arm, that's because of collagen. When you move your fingers, it's because of collagen. Does anyone take a collagen supplement in the morning or at any point during the day? Collagen, you can get that as a protein powder. My wife likes to drink it as a part of her coffee. Um, and lots of people will do that. Now, collagen is these mixture of helices or these helixes. There are three helical chains that are interwoven to produce a superhelix. Now, could anyone add to the chat, what are the building blocks of proteins? Amino acids. Perfect. We had about 20 different amino acids. Now, one thing that we talked about with respect to amino acids, we talked about the classification of them. And when it comes to the classification of amino acids, you can classify them as being the classification of amino acids, we talked about them, basically those R groups. How are those classified? Are they positive? Are they negative? Are they polar? Are they non-polar? Now, one of those amino acids that we talked about is known as glycine. We didn't go deep into glycine because it's kind of one of those boring non-polar amino acids. Collagen is made up of amino acids, but it's got a particularly unique composition. Fibrous proteins have a pattern. Collagen, as an example of a fibrous protein, has a pattern as well. Most of the amino acids in collagen are glycine. So about 33% of collagen is glycine. There are other amino acids. And what I want to do is I want to go ahead and scribble out the first part of this. Okay. Proline is one of those amino acids. And this is an instance where I do want you to know the structure of proline. So this strand right here, 1/3 roughly is glycine. Then the other, just in the interest of numbers, I'm going to round this out and I'm going to call it about 33% rather than 30. So the other third is made up of what are known as derivatives of proline and lysine. And then the last third, or actually 1/3 proline. And what proline looks like, every amino acid has this backbone, NCC. Proline looks like this. 2 plus. What's unique about proline is that it has this ring shape. Okay. Now, that is where basically 1/3 of collagen is made up of this molecule right here. Now, proline is specifically important and neat because proline forces rotations. What was the third level of protein structure? Does anyone remember what that was called? We had our primary, our secondary, and what was our third? Add it to the chat if you remember what that one was. Tertiary, our tertiary structure. That's what a protein looks like in 3D shape, in three-dimensional space. Proline is an amino acid that kind of limits the shape that a protein can take on. Now, this proline right here has this kind of simple structure, and What happens is here is a proline residue. So this is proline. Can everyone see, add a Y and or an N to the chat? What I've got circled here is the same thing that I've drawn next to the star. Add a Y if you follow that. Okay, great. Now, what happens is vitamin C, also known as ascorbic acid, is essential for taking this prolyl residue or this proline that's in a protein and modifies it. What's significant about it is this amino acid right here, we're going to classify this as nonpolar. Now, could anyone add to the chat what is a what's a good indicator that something is going to be polar? What's an element that you look for on a molecule to classify it as polar or nonpolar? My first hint for that is lone pair of electrons. Oxygen. Perfect. Oxygen. Anytime you look at a molecule and you see an oxygen on there, that's a good indication that it is going to be classified as a polar molecule. Now, to apply that, I'm going to jump back a couple of slides. How would you classify vitamin C here on the lower right-hand side of this slide? Would you classify it as N nonpolar or P polar? Polar, absolutely right. We'd classify this as polar because we got a bunch of oxygens over there. Great job. Okay, now what I want you to know about is I want you to be able to identify this structure right here. That's proline. I want you to be able to say, yes, that is proline. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to look at this by comparison. So I'm going to scribble out everything between. If this molecule is polar, how would you classify the one below that? This right here. P or N? Absolutely. It's definitely going to be more polar. Can I get a Y in the chat if you follow that? The differences between molecule A and B. If you understand that, yes, B is more polar than A, add a Y to the chat. And in the event that you're, well, hesitant to say, what we're looking for here is this OH. The presence of that OH makes molecule B more polar than molecule A. And this is known as a non-standard amino acid. So how does that happen? Well, the way that we make that change is with the help of vitamin C, ascorbic acid. I bring that up because, or actually, let me rephrase that. What's significant about this is that this OH group there enables, I'll say, helps stabilize okay. This helps stabilize collagen, the connective tissue. And I'll say collagen helices. And just so you guys are on the same page as me, the singular is a helix. When you have multiple helix, that's helices. So this is whenever we have these three. When we have this structure right here shown on the right-hand side, these three helices, add a Y to the chat if you see those three helices. The way that that's happening is with the help of that making proline more polar. Because polar things like other polar things. Non-polar things like other non-polar things. Okay. Now, this is all very important because let's see. Do you think that this happens in the absence, like if I were to get rid of vitamin C, is that step going to happen at a Y or an N? If I get rid of vitamin C, if I don't have any vitamin C in my diet, no, that's not going to happen. So what's going to happen to new collagen? I like it. Mo is also correct. New collagen, like as my body is trying to make more collagen or new collagen for connective tissue or for my skin or for my gums and my teeth, it's not going to get produced. So that collagen, if that's not going to be produced, what do you think is going to happen to my gums? Well, they're going to recede. What do you think is going to happen to my skin? Oh, well, if I were to, I got an itch and I were to scratch my finger or scratch my arm, oh, my skin might break. And then it might get very easy for me to bleed. And now I don't want to make this more graphic than it is, but let's go back. Here we go. William Stark, when he dropped vitamin C and many other things from his diet, when he was just doing bread and water, well, let's see what happened. He bled easily to the touch, and his gums were swollen and red. Now, those are just two examples, but effectively, one thing that you would probably notice, or one thing that was probably taking place, is that any new collagen that his body was producing wasn't being held together as strongly because you didn't have that vitamin C that was involved in making those polar groups. So, what I want you to understand is that this right here is a conclusive mechanism. And this is something that's very important when it comes to like scientific research. This is something that the big R word here is reproducible. This is something that's super reproducible. If you have a reaction where you have proline and you're trying to make collagen and you remove vitamin C as a reactant, that reaction's not going to take place. You're going to make those individual strands, but is collagen going to be made as this strong structure? No, it's not. So, this is why I like to bring up vitamin C because does it have potential implications in cancer? Maybe, maybe. What do we know conclusively about it from a mechanistic standpoint? This is what it absolutely does. Well, this is one thing that is kind of irrefutable. And this is something that's very reproducible. We see this OH group that's being added. Now, I also like to bring this up because this stresses, it might look like, oh, that's just an OH group. Yeah, it is. But that OH group has long-term implications in how strong your skin is. And so, could I get a Y in the chat if you follow? Okay, great, great. Okay, awesome. So, um, in addition to that, we've got or another modification that collagen is involved in is the modification of lysine that helps these other sort of these cross links and basically hold together the superstructure of collagen. After that, iron. Well, vitamin C is involved in iron. How is vitamin C involved in iron? And we're going to kind of breeze through this last portion because it's not the super mechanism part that I wanted you guys to follow, but it's still important. We talked a little bit about iron and we talked about hemoglobin. Well, Fe2, heme, is the state that iron has to be in. So Fe2 is the state that iron has to be in for your normal, like oxygenated blood. And we looked at this graph over here that shows the different colors of blood. Now, in the event that iron goes from Fe2 to Fe3, it prevents binding of O2. So it stops oxygen binding. And Fe3 heme complex is colored brown and is known as methymyoglobin. Now, vitamin C is involved in that because vitamin C helps take that problematic Fe3 plus to produce Fe2 plus. So if your takeaway here is, well, how is vitamin C involved in kind of blood oxygenation? Vitamin C helps maintain Fe2 plus concentrations, helps maintain lots of Fe2 plus. That's what vitamin C is doing. It helps maintain lots of that Fe2 plus. Now it helps or prevents iron overload and may influence iron storage proteins, preventing excess iron accumulation. Your takeaway from this is that it helps maintain the right concentration of Fe2 plus. Vitamin C, I know that lots of folks take it also whenever they're feeling a little bit sick. Well, I already talked about, or we've already talked about, it's involved in collagen production. Collagen helps in wound healing, and it also is involved, or collagen, sorry, vitamin C is also involved in reducing inflammation. And this is something that's a little bit, maybe a little bit more conclusive, and or it's something that's also worth investigating, is or something that's being investigated. Let me rephrase that. Um, Vitamin C, maintained at high levels in most immune cells, can affect many aspects of the immune response. Intercellular levels generally respond to variations in plasma ascorbate availability and a combination of inadequate intake and increased turnover during severe stress. Um, so, what it can do is help vitamin C can help reduce inflammation. And inflammation is something that it's almost like a chicken versus egg. What comes first? Does the chicken or the egg come first? Well, does the inflammation come as a result of cancer, or does the inflammation lead to the onset of cancers? Now, another kind of interesting area of research for vitamin C is that it functions in the brain and plays a vital role in neurotransmitters. So, neurodegenerative diseases typically involve high levels of oxidative stress, and thus ascorbate has been posited to have potential therapeutic roles against ischemic strokes, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and Huntington's disease. So, is vitamin C something that's definitely worth continuing to research? Absolutely. Is there something that we have a conclusive mechanism that it's involved in? Yes, we do. We know that it's involved in maintaining Fe2 plus levels. We know that it's also involved in making collagen available, readily available. Um, so it helps maintain your skin. It helps maintains like collagen or connective tissues. Is vitamin C essential? Yeah, totally. But what are the limitations on it? Well, we don't know. It's still an area of research. Okay. Well, that's what I wanted to go over today. On Wednesday, we'll meet again. If anyone has any questions, you're welcome to hang around. I'm going to be posting your activities and your quizzes later today. I hope that you guys have a great Monday. Thank you very much for coming to class and responding to everything. Sorry for my clumsiness with getting the PDF up, but I hope you guys have a great Monday. I'll see you guys on Wednesday. I'm going to stop my recording now.